welcome to Monroe Mustangs. I'm your host, David Spiegel. With me today, the assistant coach for the Monroe Mustangs men's basketball team. Please welcome Coach James Barrett.
Hey, what's up, Dave? Appreciate you having me on today.
Thanks for coming on, Coach. Appreciate having you here. Let's just jump right in here. You obviously are the assistant coach with the men's basketball team at Monroe. You were with us. Your first season was 2019-20. You know, obviously a memorable season last year, one that was unfortunately cut short, but we will get into that very quickly. Also, you are the founder and CEO of Unsigned Hype Unlimited and the Unsigned Hype Senior Games, and I really want to talk about that. Helping a lot of young athletes in this area get recruited, find their ways into scholarships, and some of them even reaching the highest level of basketball. So, a lot of names we want to talk about, a lot of things we want to get into. But first, let's jump right into Monroe. Of course, you would have been heading into your second season this year. 2020-21 would have been year 2 for you, but unfortunately, that year is not happening for the Monroe men's basketball team and most schools in our area, really. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, and we're not having a winter season right now. But 2019-20 was a really memorable year for the Mustangs. Went 24-9 overall. Made a good run to win the Region 15 championship. That was a tough one, beating Harcum College down in Pennsylvania. A really fun game. And eventually winning the East District itself, which is something that evaded the team for a couple of years before this past season. And then, as we know, winning the East District, we qualified for the NJCAA men's basketball championship tournament, but we had to, of course, bow out of that right before it began, and then the whole tournament itself got canceled. So your first season with Monroe, what were some of your favorite experiences this past year?
I want to say, starting off, first, just being able to come and coach with Coach Brewstad. I've heard so many, great things about him in the past, and just looking at his record and, looking at some of the things that he's done, here at Monroe, it was a great opportunity to even be picked, to be a part of his staff. In this area there are a lot of good coaches just pretty much around the country. So, to have the opportunity to come in and coach for Coach Brewstad, that was first and foremost, the best part. And then secondly, with the team that we only had 3 returners that came back on that team last year. With Juan, Zion, and Eli. So with those 3 guys, we pretty much had a whole new group of guys and had to get those guys to step into leadership roles and, eventually get us to the national tournament. So it was definitely at parts during the season, we had some struggles where I want to say at one point we were 15-9. And then we won our last 9 games to finish out the season 24-9. I think that was a great part of it. I think the toughest part was having to explain to the guys and, talk to them about not being able to go and compete at Hutch, because normally at Hutch, you get there and it's maybe 200 or 300 Division I coaches. And a lot of the guys that come to junior college come here because they want to move on to the 4-year level and get seen by these guys. So for them to work as hard as they did, throughout the season, through our ups and downs, and actually make it there, to the national tournament and then not have a chance to play, that was disheartening, for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, a theme throughout the first 20 or so episodes of this show has been what happened when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit and canceled a lot of our seasons. So yeah, it's something we have to talk about. It's just the reality of the world, but it, obviously it was incredibly upsetting having to, of course, make that decision. And then the NJCAA having to make the ultimate decision just to not have the tournament as well. Our women's basketball team had the same result as well. They qualified, they didn't get to go. And then of course, all of our spring sports just barely got off the ground before they had to stop their seasons as well. So again, just the reality of the past year, but, going back to the 2019-20 season, like you said, there were some hiccups along the way. I know some of those long trips were tough on the team, but when you're going down to Florida and Kansas and playing all these really good teams, it's obviously a really good experience for a lot of the guys. So, what would you say is maybe 1 or 2 really notable experiences from your first year with Monroe?
Just the chance to play against some of these Division II junior colleges, in the area, because a lot of times, people knock Monroe by saying we don't have as good of a schedule in which we did go out to play Barton and Hutch, in Kansas, and we did go to Florida and play Tallahassee and Gulf Coast and, Pensacola, some of the premier schools in that area. But a lot of the Division II schools in this area are really, really good. Some of the kids that go to those schools are definitely good enough to play here in Monroe and at a lot of junior colleges, around the country. So I feel like we kind of get a little knock on our conference, but we play against so much talent because there's just so many people in New York. We have 20 million people in the state, so it's like another town may have, a small amount, but we have just so many people just in a small area, that these kids are talented and they are going to other places, and we have to play against them, so our schedule one is a lot tougher than what people may seem. And here Monroe's a 4-year school, so it's not your typical junior colleges. So we have all the resources that you need academically, which I was very impressed with. We had so many tutors where they all have 4.0 GPAs working in our academic center. So it's just so many things here that really, made me really enjoy, just the process of being here, and it's a family environment. So my thing was just being accepted right away by the other staff, and, and being accepted, throughout the Monroe community. So it's been great for me, from the day I stepped on campus.
Of course, it's great to hear. And yeah, I do want to mention that, like you said, the schedule may not seem as tough as it actually is, but I think a lot of people forget that, the difference between Division One and Division Two and Three at the NCAA level is not the same as it is in the NCAA, where a lot of students are playing for their local community colleges that are not necessarily Division One, but you get a lot of high level talent just from where, just from that local area that just wanted to stay at home for a couple more years, and they really showed off. And it really shows too, because you see a lot of those Division II, Division III athletes still going to Division I schools once they finish their year or two in JUCO. So, we've seen a lot of really strong athletes come through the MAC that are not necessarily Division I NJCAA players, but they get to that next level, and they're very notable. So that's always one thing to note when people look at our schedule. It's just because we don't have that many Division I teams in our area, it doesn't mean we're not playing quality opponents.
Yes, I agree with you.
But I think there was a lot of hype for this team going into this season, the 2020-21 season. And, I know we had a couple big recruits that I know that you and Coach Brewstad were really happy to land, and we're getting excited to see them on the court here. And of course it didn't happen, but what were some of the things that you were most excited about before we knew the season wasn't going to happen?
I was most excited with our team camaraderie ship. And we got the kid Melvin Council. We kind of recruited him pretty late. And I want to say the first day we had a guy that was kind of lagging, and he was behind, while we were running. And Melvin took it upon himself, to finish out the run, with that guy. And when he finished the run, the rest of the team got up and they did the exact same thing. So that was our second day, so to start off our second day and have guys who, cared that much about each other and other people that they would go out there and run extra for somebody that they barely knew, that was definitely a highlight. And, we had no issues with it being COVID. The kids spent a lot of time, in the dorm with having a quarantine, with first coming in and different things like that. And they made it through those challenges. And we had some pretty good practices before we found out there wasn't going to be a season. But we had like a big transfer with Rostik Nowitzki and, Hamdel Muhammad and Melvin Council, and those guys all coming in with our returners, and Julio and Lewis and those guys, Luca, that were coming back. I felt like we had a really good chance to either repeat, and even do better than we did last year, record-wise. So we were really excited about this year. And the fact that we couldn't play, is definitely a challenge, because I had to look back and I was said, since I was 11 years old, in December and January, I've been competing in basketball, whether it be playing at a younger age or coaching today. So not doing those things at this point in time and just having workouts, it's definitely been a change and a challenge. But, in life, things are going to happen. So it's just about how we respond to those things. And I think our guys have done a good job of, getting in the gym now and, really working hard and just working toward next season. So, it's been good with this group, and I'm excited that we even have these guys.
Of course, I haven't been around, especially not around as much the team as much as you have, and and Coach Bruce that has. So you guys know these players a lot better than I do. Unfortunately for some of them, I didn't even get to see them in person yet. So I just know from the things I heard, I was very excited for what the season was supposed to be. And I know just one thing that's been a common theme for me throughout the last few months is that I'm looking at my phone and seeing all the memories from last year, or looking at our Monroe Mustangs accounts and seeing the memories from last year, the year before, and I'm looking at it and seeing around this time last year, we were having our preseason tournament. And then, around this time is opening night for us. And then this is when the team usually goes on its first trip of the year. And it's been really challenging to kind of deal with, what we're used to just not being there anymore. Even I've just having been in sports information, athletic communications for, basically 10 years at this point. I got used to a kind of certain timeline, and it's just not there right now. So, I'm sure it's even double time for the athletes that are used to, like, this is when everything ramps up. This is when we're in mid-season form, and this is usually when we're getting ready for the playoffs. And right now we'd be right there in the thick of that, getting ready for the postseason. So, unfortunately, again, like I said, it's just the reality of what we're dealing with right now. But, you know, I don't know as much about the team as you do, so you'll be more insightful in this. But whenever we do return to play, and hopefully it's a full season next year, things are back to what we're used to. What are some of the things you're going to be most looking forward to then?
Man, just competing every day with a goal. Like right now, our goal is kind of different because we're pretty much preparing as though, say it's like August or July, and we're doing that in February, so it's a little different, not, practicing and gearing up for games and different things like that. So kind of keeping guys motivated and just having them understand, even though we're 6 months away, from a possible game, even longer than that, you know, almost 7, 8 months away, that you're doing this for a purpose, and this is why we're doing it. And I think that we just really have a great group of guys. I don't think that we could have had a better group of guys for this time period and what's actually going on. We sat down with all our guys and we spoke to them about them, even possibly like going to different schools and where they can go and compete right away. And everybody wanted to stay. I don't know if that's a testament to who is really a testament to. Is it a testament to the guys or, the coaching staff, or just, the school in general, for those guys to be comfortable enough to want to stay here and, continue their education. But we were happy, whatever decision the guys would have made, and they all chose to stay. So, guys have been in the gym going hard, and, I'm just excited to see like some of the progress that guys are making right now. And I don't know if we would have had as much time to put as much work in, if we did have a season going on individually. So I'm excited for this time, and right now we're just making the best of it.
I had Coach Bruce out on the show a couple months ago, and this was before we knew, at that time, I think we were expecting a late January, early February start to the season. And we're still, we were still working towards having that season. I think we were about to wrap up the fall practices. It was probably a little bit before Thanksgiving, if I remember correctly. And it was kind of what you were saying there just a couple months ago, that, we're preparing for a season starting in a different timeline. We have a little extra time. So still kind of trying to figure out how you prepare for a later season when everyone's used to a certain timeline. Like, this is when we do this and this is when we do that. So it is interesting to hear now, a few months later, how now it's the same thing again, but you're kind of, it's almost like it's summertime for you guys heading into a new season, but you have to spread that out over 6-7 months. So again, it's always interesting to hear just how coaches are dealing with it. And I'm sure a lot of schools are doing it differently. And, luckily for some schools, they are able to compete right now, but, we'll be double time ready, hopefully, for next year when it comes around. But, one thing I was wondering, and I haven't heard this story actually, is, you mentioned that you'd heard about Coach Bruce that before, and it's great to, come on board and work with him. But when did the two of you first actually come across each other, and how did that eventually lead to you coming on board at Monroe?
So I initially met Corner when he was an assistant for Coach Brewstead, and he would come out to Unsigned Hype Senior Games. And he actually, I want to say the first one that I had, he recruited Tom Rivera that played at Monroe and then went on to play at Maryland Eastern Shore. So then I would see Coach Brewstead kind of come out, year after year and come to Unsigned Hype, but we didn't really talk a lot. Because if anybody knows Coach Brewstead, like he likes to communicate and with different people. But if he doesn't know you, he kind of stays to himself. So he kind of would just kind of stay to himself, and Dana would do a lot of the talking, but then over the years, we would just start to talk here and there. And I got a phone call from Ricky Johns, who's the assistant at Iona, and he told me about the position at Monroe. And he pretty much kind of put it together, and I came up and I met with Jeff, and it's been history from there. We got a chance to coach together and make it to the national tournament the first year, which is very difficult. And when I came in, he gave me, like, he trusted some of the things that I brought to the table, and it was a very easy transition to come into Monroe. He was kind of like, all right, go ahead, speak up. Like, I don't mind if you say this or do this. Like, I know that you can coach. And it's been like that from day one. And, it's been great.
As I mentioned earlier, Coach Brewstead was, when he first told me you were coming on board and he was kind of passing along your information, he did tell me how excited he was to have you on board and some of your experiences. And then I know the first time I even saw you, the first time I was at a practice or as we were getting ready for some of our first games, I remember you just being very comfortable with everyone already. And, it looked like you'd been here for years. So, I think you definitely acclimated yourself well early on in those first few months with us. But I want to go very far back now. Of course, we're going to talk about Unsigned Hype, and that's going to be a lot to talk about. But I want to talk about where basketball began for you. What are some of your earliest lifetime memories of basketball? And then let's talk about your playing days and working your way through high school and everything at that time.
Yeah, so basketball started for me at a YMCA in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and I pretty much started there. I was 11 years old, and I was pretty tall for my age, and they forced me to play. I wasn't really a fan of basketball. I started off playing baseball, and they pretty much hunted me down to play. And it was just like, I'm like, man, if I don't, they were like, man, we better not see you just walking around and you miss the game. Because I would miss all my basketball games on the weekends to go and play baseball. Because I'm like, I'd rather go hit a home run than get on the basketball court and score 2 points, because all the guards never pass the post players. So that's kind of where it started. And then from there, I just continued to improve, and I wound up getting a scholarship to Bishop Loughlin. And I started my playing career there in high school, and I moved on and played at prep school at Milford Academy, and then I finished off my senior year at Lincoln High School, and we won the state championship. So just getting an opportunity to play for coaches like Ted Gustis, who one day, he's one of the best coaches to ever coach in New York City, and to play for Tiny Morton, who's going to be a Hall of Fame coach, probably should be a Hall of Fame coach right now. He's won more championships than anybody else, probably ever will in the PSAL. So, just being around those people and, understanding a winning mentality and understand what it takes to, pretty much be an everyday guy and win. And it takes every single day. And then in college, I went to junior college in West Texas at Barstow, first at Barstow Community College in California. I stayed there a year, and then I did 2 years at Howard College, where I played for Coach Mark Adams, who's the associate head coach at Texas Tech right now. And in those 2 years at Howard, I want to say we were 62-8. And then I went on to Sam Houston State for 2 years, and we won 20 games both seasons. So I've just never really been around a program where we lost. So it's just kind of just getting guys mentally prepared, to be winners, and the things that it takes, because it takes every single player, every academic advisor, the athletic directors, the coaches. It takes everybody, to have a winning program. And that's kind of what stuck out to me through my years of playing basketball and kind of led up to, where I am today.
I think it helps too that you're now coaching at the JUCO level. You've had experience coaching the JUCO level too, but that you were a junior college player yourself before moving on to the NCAA Division I level. So what was it like for you just getting experience at the JUCO level before moving on and continuing a collegiate career at the next level?
At junior college, I really didn't know what was going on. I just knew that I just wanted to play basketball in college, and junior college is just where I winded up. But once I got there, I understood that I had to continue on and play Division I. There was things that I had to do, and I had some good coaches when I got to Howard, where I had Coach Mark Adams and Jason Sauter, and those guys really pushed me, and I just got to the point to where like being a Division I player wasn't even really the goal. Like our goal was just team goals. We just wanted to be the best team that we could possibly be. And, by us doing that, we worked hard. Like we put in the extra time. We would stay after practice and shoot. I would go out and I would go and swim at the local YMCA just to get stronger and be in better condition. Like we just all did a bunch of different things and we held each other accountable. And I went on to play Division I because of those things, because of my teammates. It wasn't so much of me, it was my teammates. They always held me accountable because they wanted to win. We all just wanted to win. So, I think that's the reason that I went Division I more so than just my talent.
It's funny because just having talked to some recent alumni recently and other coaches as well, the experience that I've heard from a lot of the guys saying that, they went to a JUCO and then they moved on to a Division I school and whatever they did after that, that, when you're at the high school level, a lot of times what you want to do is get yourself recruited. And it
Mhm.
should be the same at the JUCO level too, because you're trying to find that next opportunity. But a lot of the athletes, especially ones that have come through Monroe, have said that, they got here thinking maybe this is where I'm going to take the next step, but that it really became like a family and team oriented mentality. So, it's cool to hear that actually it's a mentality that, goes farther back than, the last few years and just goes beyond Monroe. So, it's another thing too, is that I know over the last few years, they've been trying to eliminate that stigma of what junior college is. And just from my experiences the last few years as well, it really sounds like, it's not what a lot of people make it out to be. It's always, it's a great experience. There's so many good athletes that come through those levels. I mean, that make it to the professional levels. Now the NJCAA is seeing guys get drafted in the NBA draft. They come straight from the NJCAA. So,
Yeah.
it's really been, more than just a stepping stone is basically the gist that I've been getting from it. Obviously I'm experiencing it myself now, but just a lot of the athletes just loving the competition at this level and, learning how to become better students and everything it takes, to really get you to the next level and all the friends they've made. And I could go on about the experiences I've heard from all the other athletes. If you're listening right now, you can go back in our archives, listen to some of the recent athletes because they have some really good stories about all the friends they made and the experiences and just, how it felt like family at Monroe and wherever else they were. Monroe MustHangs is sponsored by the Monroe Mustangs Sideline Store, powered by our apparel partners at BSN Sports. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, hats, jackets, or accessories, the Monroe Mustangs Sideline Store has it all. Gear up with the new Monroe Mustangs logo and make it your own with hundreds of customizable options, including sport-specific designs. For the month of February, you can take 20% off all orders of $80 or more when you use the promo code FEB21. That's FEB21. Visit MonroeCollegeMustangs.com/shop to look your best as you cheer on the Mustangs. So after your playing days, when was it that you knew that you wanted to be a coach, and when was it that you first did get into coaching?
Okay, so I got into coaching probably in like 2008. I was working at a facility for kids who they pretty much were like on the verge of either going to jail or they had been to jail, and then they put them in this facility as like almost like a halfway house. Like if you do well here, you go home. If you don't, you go back to jail. So I was working there part-time, and it was a new athletic director that came in by the name of Toby Hendricks, and he just asked me, he's like, hey, I know you played basketball at Sam Houston. Why don't you come here and, just help out? So I helped him out for like a week. And then one day he came to me, he's like, hey, why don't you, he said, do you mind just being a head coach? Because I've been really busy. And I'm like, this guy kind of set me up for this. And that's when I got my first experience. And then after that, I went over to Sam Houston. I was the student assistant, and Coach Alvin Brooks, who started the organization Be Ready. He's also the assistant coach at Baylor right now, and he pretty much, I just watched him every day. I was in the office, I would watch him. I also was in the office with Will Weaver, who's the assistant coach of the Houston Rockets, and we were like all at Sam Houston together. And I'm like, let me watch these guys, let me see what they're doing. And I'm like, their job isn't that hard. I'm like, all AB does is just talk on the phone all day. I'm like, I could do that easily. Talk about basketball and, call people on the phone and talk to them. I could easily do that job. So that's kind of where it started. And Coach Hooten, who's the head coach of Sam Houston now, he would invite me in. And, one of the most memorable moments for me was we were sitting in the office. We were sitting in the locker room at halftime. And he asked me, he's like, we were playing against Cleveland State, and they had Norris Cole at the time, who won the championship with the Miami Heat. And he said, James, what do you think? Like, what do you think we should do? And I'm looking like, you asking me? And I think that's kind of where I really saw like the value that I could actually bring to a program was that day. And, just being, like I said, being around winners and being around, people that really enjoy the game and people who, push themselves to be better, because I've seen nothing but growth from all those guys. And, I've just been blessed to be in, the right situations and around the right people.
And along the way, I know you've made a number of different stops at all different levels, the AAU, even the PSAL. I believe you did go back and coach at Lincoln High School, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And it's a notable place because, I remember recognizing that when I was younger from ESPN, because they were talking about Stephon Marbury and his cousin Sebastian Telfair and Lance Stevenson. And then, of course, a player that you coached who's Isaiah Whitehead, who is a notable name as well. Mm-hmm. All went through there. But, eventually right before Monroe, you were at Seward County Community College, which is another big JUCO program. And that team went to the NJCAA tournament the year that you were there. Beating some big teams too. I know Region 6 is a very tough one to get through. Obviously you brought a lot of experience before you came to Monroe. And what I do want to know is that you got, obviously the coaching experience is there, but and now you told me a story that I hadn't heard before about your first coaching gig and how you were helping a lot of, maybe troubled athletes that were trying to find their way in the world. And now it kind of makes a little bit more sense what you're doing right now also with Unsigned Hype Unlimited and the Unsigned Hype Senior Games. So tell me all about that. I think it'll come out of your mouth better than it'll come out of mine. So what are those two establishments all about, and how did they first come about?
Okay, so I had a mentor pretty much growing up since middle school. His name is Troy Gaskin, and he pretty much kind of helped lead me into college and help me pick a college. And, he was one person, and it was a couple other kids that he helped as well. And I kind of looked at that and said, man, this is something that, I eventually want to do, kind of help kids move on and, be in the best possible situation. And the school that he helped me go to was Barstow, and it wasn't a great fit for me personally. So I said to myself, instead of, putting guys in a situation, just placing them at a school, let me work on putting together a platform where the coaches could come out and then see who makes sense for their program, because there's no way possible for us as one person to go out and know exactly where the kids may fit, not only basketball wise, but even personality wise with the coaches. So that was one of the reasons. The first two kids that I've ever sent to junior college was Jabari Peters who went on and played at Sam Houston State after playing at Seward County, and Edson Avila, who went and played at Seward County and went to the national tournament there for 2 years in a row. So those two guys were the first guys that, made me really want to start Unsigned Hype. And, after we won a championship, we won a city championship at Lincoln. I spoke to Tiny and I'm like, I think this probably be a good time to talk to Tiny, get some uniforms, being that, I helped recruit some guys for us to, win the championship at Lincoln. And he gave me some uniforms, some underarm uniforms. And that was all she wrote from there.
And of course, there's been a lot of notable names that, both under your coaching tree and have gone through Unsigned Hype. I mean, especially Unsigned Hype, the name that's most familiar right now, I'd say, especially in our area, is Obi Toppin, who was a local kid. He did come through that system. You got to know him well. You go right on that website of yours, and he's right there front and center. And of course, that name sounds most familiar, not just because of him playing at Dayton the past few years, but because he was the New York Knicks 8th overall pick in the 2020 NBA draft. So, you've had a lot of other notable names. You can see, again, a list of alumni on that website. You sent me a lot of the notable ones earlier today too. You have players that have been to going to a lot of big Division I schools and, helping also recruit for some of the local ones. You have some of the ones that you sent me earlier today, Isaiah Dees, who plays for LaSalle. Excuse me if I say any of the names wrong. Omar Silverio playing at Hofstra, Ryan Preston and DeVale Johnson. Sorry, if I get that right. Playing for Rhode Island. And then you mentioned Tom Rivera, who went to Monroe, and then University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And then also just some notable names I want to throw out there too, as well as that you've coached in other ways as well. Isaiah Cousins, who was drafted by the Jazz in 2016, the Utah Jazz. Isaiah Whitehead, who we mentioned before, who played for the Nets as well, also drafted 2016. Hamidou Diallo, who's playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder right now. Jordan Nwora, also he's playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. And then a couple other pros were Raul Alkins, played for the Bulls, I believe. And then Jaleel Tripp, who is in the Grizzlies organization right now as well. So a lot of notable names that have, can credit some of what they're doing right now, at least, to things that you've helped them with. So I'd say, it's a really good list to put together there. So what are some of the more notable events that you've put together with, the Unsigned Hype Senior Games? What are some of the memories that you'd want to let people know about, or some of the experiences that you think are most notable that have happened for you with that, especially over the last few years?
So one of the biggest things, like, when I thought about Unsigned Hype, I mainly thought about just guys like just playing in the showcase and then just getting a scholarship to maybe a junior college or something like that. I really didn't think too deep into it. I was just like, hey, they're in high school, they're transitioning from high school to junior college, or maybe some of them guys play D1 right away. And I'm just like, just getting to college. But then as the years went on, guys started to graduate junior college. And then they started to graduate four-year schools. And then they started like becoming professional athletes. And I'm like, whoa, this is a little bit, different than what I was thinking of initially. It got bigger, like really, really fast. And, the thing that I'm most excited about with Unsigned Hype is just the kids graduating and getting degrees. And I felt like, with me being one person and being able to help so many kids go to college, I always thought, imagine if I could get at least 10 to 20 of those guys to come back and do the same thing. And, we'll have a bunch of people just around New York City and, other areas that really had people that they could talk to with those experiences as well. So that was like my biggest thing. Maybe we get a couple guys to come back and help and give back to the kids that are growing up and doing things today. And, we've been able to do that. And, it's been great to kind of see those guys, because some of them come back. They come back and they support the other kids who play Unsigned Hype. And, I'm just excited to see that more so than anything, more so than any of the accomplishments. In the basketball courts, guys have won championships on every level: Division I, Division II, NAIA, Division III, so many different levels. And now with Obi going to the NBA, that's been very, very, I'm beyond, proud of, the things that Obi's been able to accomplish and other guys as well.
I remember, especially with Obi, just even a year ago, basically. I know that when I first started learning about what you were doing with Unsigned Hype, that was a name that stood out. Obviously, he was making waves across the country with what he was doing at Dayton last year, and then for him to end up with the Knicks is just, it's a heck of a story, of course. But I knew when I was watching the draft and I saw his name called. I mean, I'm a Knicks fan, so it's cool to see, especially a local kid like that is hopefully going to be a Knick for years to come and make a big impact with this team and help them finally turn things around. I knew that you were somebody that was going to be incredibly hyped about it because of everything that, everything you talked about him, everything you've done with him. That so I thought, just when I heard his name, it was not only just as a Knicks fan was I excited, but also knowing you, I knew that would be a very exciting moment for you as well. So that was just, made the experience that much better, of course. But when it comes to Unsigned Hype and you helping a lot of kids, find their way to college, what are some of the things you look for, and how do you find some of the athletes, and how do they really get on your radar before you end up working with them?
So it's pretty much like a team of guys we have, like with Tippy McTurnan, Adrian Allman, and a couple other guys that we have that kind of go out and scout talent. And a lot of people call me throughout the year, and they may tell me about guys, and I'll go check them out. And when I coached at Lincoln, we played against a lot of the talent in the city. So I either got a chance to coach against a lot of guys, or just kind of see them throughout the year, maybe playing in a tournament or something that we played in. So I pretty much kind of go after guys who, because in the past for Unsigned Hype Senior Games, we only had 40 spots. So it was like a big thing of going and recruiting guys to play in the event that were recruitable, because a lot of times, like, you can go as a college coach and go watch a group of guys, maybe like 100 guys in the gym at one time. But if those guys aren't recruitable, if they aren't good people, if they aren't, good teammates, if they haven't been coached, if they haven't been in programs that are used to winning, like, those are things that are gonna hinder them when they make it to the collegiate level. And then some of those guys get sent home. So I wanted to put together a group of guys and kind of do, half of the work that the junior colleges or 4-year schools kind of had to do. And that's been my thing. Let me go out and get recruitable guys, and guys that are going to have a real opportunity to be successful, on the collegiate level. So that's kind of what my mindset was coming in. And now with the pandemic going on, it's a little bit different. I'll probably have more kids in my showcase because I feel like more kids, they actually need help. More kids need help now than I feel like they did in the past. I was always big on helping a guy that nobody was helping. In New York City, a lot of times it's easy for, people to try to attach themselves to, like, the guys that are going Division I, but I don't feel like a lot of the guys that have the talent to go Division I, like, they don't really need as much help. It's the guys who may be kind of right under them, like the guys who may be ranked maybe not in the top 100, but like below them, that really need help, and getting a little push, or just having a platform to show their talent. So that's kind of why the event started, and what I look for in, like, some of the players. And to touch on with the Obi Toppin situation, like, Obi was one of the kids that Tippy recommended. And Obi, I grew up with his father. Like, his father grew up around me. So that same YMCA that I was talking about, that I started at in Williamsburg, right around the corner for Busher Projects, I played against Obi's father all the time. So he was somebody that, I looked up to as a kid, when I would go into the gym and go and compete. And he would bring him and his wife would bring Obi in the stroller. Obi and their other son, Jacob, who plays at Kentucky right now, they would push them in the Y and in the stroller, and they would watch Big Obi play. And it's just amazing to me, because, like, Obi's the first person, like, from my neighborhood to go to the NBA. So it's like it's special. It's like a special situation. Like, everybody in our neighborhood is cheering him on. So him playing in Unsigned Hype was really a small part of why I was happy, for Obi. I'm just happy for not only Obi, but his family, his mom and dad, and the people that really, helped him, along the journey, and just the work that he put in. Because when he played in Unsigned Hype, I want to say he didn't have any Division One offers. He had maybe some D2 stuff, and some couple JUCOs. I want to say Dana told me that he was recruiting him a little bit to Monroe, and obviously that didn't happen, but he made a good choice in going to prep school down in I want to say it was Maryland. He went to Mount Zion, and it was a great situation for him, and one of the guys that helped him, Vic Morenos, who was he went to Bishop Lockman as well. That was one of Obi's mentors throughout his process, and it's been great for him, man. To get drafted by the Knicks is almost a dream come true, for Obi and his father, because I think his father had the talent to make it to that level, but I don't think that he had the people around him, the same way. So he used that, to help his son and guide him, in the right direction. And it's just been a beautiful thing for, our neighborhood.
That's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that all, because it's a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and just seeing him on TV doesn't tell that entire story all the time. So it's
Yeah.
cool to have somebody that was so close to him that can tell us all that, give us a little bit more in depth detail about it. And one thing I do want to talk about is a couple things that have happened basically since our season was ended last year. That ways that you have been recognized, and I think a lot of things you've been talking about helped with that. This first one, of course, is that you and Coach Jeff Bruce that were both selected by Silver Waves Media to be part of the 50 most impactful coaches in JUCO list. I know that was back in April, and I remember both of you guys being excited about this list. And I remember going down that list and just seeing a lot of the schools and a lot of the names that were on this list. And you didn't really see too many coaches that were technically assistant coaches that made this list. So for you to be joining Coach Bruce on that list was very notable from in my opinion and from my viewpoint. So what do you think it was that you did that helped you make this list and kind of put you on the national level in terms of recognition? And what did it mean to make this list?
What did I do to make the list? I prayed, a lot of prayer throughout the years, and just put myself in the right positions and around the right people, and just being a good person. I think that's the biggest thing, just coming across people. And for me, it's like treating the janitor, the same way that I would treat the president of the school, and just being a good person. I think that's kind of, you can't recruit if you're not a good person. You won't get a job, if you're not a good person. So I just feel like just a testament to my mother, and, the values that she instilled in me, and my grandmother, and, just to help me get to that point. So me making that list was nice. It was great, and I really, really appreciated it. But I think it started with them. And without, those people, my mom and my grandmother and my Uncle Troy, without them being in my life, I don't think that, I even get to a point to where that's even possible. So I think it started there.
Of course, it's always a great thing to hear. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about that was, I mean, potentially even more notable based on what I heard about it, was being selected for Project Rise through JUCO Advocate. And this is something that you and I talked about it, and we obviously shared it on our pages a couple months ago because it was a really cool thing. But again, this is one of those where I think you might be able to explain it better than I can. So can you tell us all what Project Rise is and some of your experiences with that so far since it's been announced?
Yeah, so I was super excited when I got picked for Project Rise, because Brandon Goebel, he only picked 10 people, and he said he was picking like from junior college coaches to high school coaches to AAU guys. So to be one of the 10 that got picked throughout the whole country, that I felt really, really good about that. And then from there, it's been great. They paired me up. He paired me up with Coach Quanzo Martin, the head coach at Missouri, and we've been talking often. And we also have like a life coach and Adam Gerlach, and I get an opportunity to speak with him and meet with him, and just kind of help improve myself, throughout the time. So it's been a great, program with just me for just me bettering myself, as a person and as a coach. So I think I'm very joyous for the opportunity and happy that Brandon picked me because he could have picked anybody, obviously. And we're like kind of like in the beginning stages of it. And I've had some great conversations with Coach Martin, and he'll call me and just ask like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, I didn't really even want anything. I just call and check on you, make sure you're all right. And it's little small things like that, where you see like this whole game is just so much bigger than basketball. To me, it's more so about the relationships that you make throughout the time with, players, coaches, administration, and, guys like yourself. Like we talk, you know, often, even though, I'm not seeing you every day in the office like I would during, a regular year, but it's mainly about the relationships, and I'm getting a chance to see some of that stuff from, Coach Martin. So I'm just very happy and blessed, that Brandon, would pick me for Project Rise, and it's been great so far. And I'm looking forward to, how the rest of the program is gonna, turn out.
And of course, this being the year that it is, I don't know if you were expecting when this was first announced that you wouldn't be, getting to coach competitive basketball at this time. So all the better to have somebody to talk to during this time and someone with so much experience, like you said. And this kind of leads into what I want to wrap up with today, which is that while we're very limited in what we can do right now, even when our players get back on the court, it's just going to be some limited practices and having to continue doing, all the social distancing and all the COVID protocols. What are some things that you have been doing lately? I know you and I have talked about this a little bit off the air, but some things that you've been doing to help improve yourself, help improve your projects and your websites, and just things that you've been doing to, take the next step in this time, not time off, but, in time when things are a little bit slower right now.
So throughout the quarantine period, I want to say like maybe April last year, I had started um just getting on a bunch of Zoom meetings. So I would go on Zoom and I would do a lot of Instagram live videos that I would watch. And pretty much on a lot of the Zooms, we would sit there and listen to coaches, at 4-year schools, and they would just talk about their stories and, different things that they had to pretty much go through to get to the points to where they were today. And it was just like amazing to kind of see everybody and listen to them speak, from coaches like Shaka Smart to Bruce Weber to like just so many notable names. Like I don't even want to single anybody out, and but those guys, like just listening to them speak and like, wow, like you guys went through the same thing and y'all made like Shaka Smart. I didn't know he played like a Division 3. So it was like little small things that I learned, and I seen that these guys made it through those situations. So, it really helped me from X's and O's and hearing about, how coaches started their programs and, some of the things that they look for in recruitment and, just people. It kind of gave me a different outlook on, how my approach should be, whether it came to recruiting or dealing with the administration or understanding that I needed to get to know different people and then step outside of myself and, and really make a push for, just having people know who I am, as a person and building a rapport, around campus. That was huge for me. And just a lot of Zooms. And I don't even know how many Zooms that I have been on. It's like I had to be on at least 100 Zooms since March. And I've just been watching and interacting with people and networking and, building relationships. And that's been great. And I still look forward to, doing more and just learning more. I just know that you cannot stop learning in this game. And, I spoke to coaches who had businesses outside of coaching and just different things. And it's very important. So it was great to kind of be on those Zooms and to take the time to really have the time to do it, because normally in a regular year we wouldn't have this type of time, to do different things. But I've also been working on like some graphic design and making flyers and video highlights and, you know, a lot of the stuff that the guys like, you know, throughout recruiting. And here at the junior college level, you know, I can't bombard you, you know, with us having football and soccer and so many different sports. I say, instead of me calling Dave to ask him to do all these small things, let me see if I could find out, you know, how to do some of those things on my own. So I've been, you know, working on some of that stuff. And, you know, I think it's helped, you know, with recruitment and kind of getting Monroe out there and getting us some hype out there and, you know, different things. So, you know, I'm excited about, you know, it's been like a gift and a curse not playing. The gift of it is I've had some time to kind of slow down and, you know, find out, self-reflect and see some of the things that I probably need to work on as a coach and as a person. And then the bad part about it is just not being able to compete, you know, so it's just kind of turning the negatives into positives and, you know, working forward from there.
Of course, all that I think is just a great lesson for everyone to hear. You know, just taking all this time, which is, it's been almost a year that we've been doing this, and, you know, doing everything you can to get your name out there and do what you're doing better. And, you know, of course, like you mentioned, you know, making yourself do a better job for Unsigned Hype as well. The one thing that was notable that you and I discussed recently was how you just started jumping into graphic design. I just remember a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago, even just seeing that you were posting stuff on your social media pages, and I was like, where did this come from? Who did he hire? And then you told me a few days ago that it was you doing it yourself. So I think it's awesome. And I remember you talking to me a few months ago, trying to see if I could help you out with some of those things. And then just to see that you kind of jumped right in and did it on your own is it's admirable, you know, to say the least, I'd say. So, you know, it obviously helped me too, because, you know, you were trying to get me to do things, and I didn't necessarily say I didn't have the time for you to do. I was happy to help, and then all of a sudden you weren't asking anymore, and there it was. So it's really cool to see that. So, but Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time today. I think it's been great. I really like hearing about Unsigned Hype and everything you've been doing, and obviously I'm looking forward to you bringing some of the knowledge you've gained over the last year to the court for a lot of our guys whenever it is that we get back to work, and you know, hopefully you and I are working in the same building again sometime soon.
Yes.
Before we head out of here, what are some places that you may want some people to follow you, or where can they see more about Unsigned Hype?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Unsigned Hype Unlimited. On Twitter at Unlimited, and at the website at www.unsignedhypeunlimited.com. You can find me on there. I'll answer back. If you DM me or, you know, leave me a message or email, you know, through the website, you know, I respond back all the time. So those are the places where they can definitely find that out. And then on the Monroe website, the Monroe Mustangs MBB, you know, on Instagram, you know, for basketball updates for Monroe College.
I can certainly say from seeing it over the last few months that those Unsigned Hype pages are definitely growing recently. And
Yes.
now that you're working on more graphics for it, I think it's going to be even better soon. So yeah, definitely everyone give that a follow. Of course, you could follow our pages at Monroe Mustangs on Instagram, at Monroe_Mustangs on Twitter. You can find us Monroe College Mustangs on Facebook as well. For those of you listening at home, you can also watch these episodes of Monroe Mustangs on YouTube, youtube.com/Monroe Mustangs. You can watch it on our Instagram page on IGTV every week. And also, of course, wherever you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you prefer. So everyone out there, thanks again for watching or listening. Thanks for hanging with us this week. Stay safe out there. Stay healthy. Coach, thank you again for being here. Thank you for taking the time. It's good to see you. And stay safe. And hopefully I'll see you soon.
You too. All right. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you.
Of course. Appreciate you too. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.